This house is falling down, the baby's belly's all broken out. It could rain for a month or more, but still be stuck in a drought. Hello, how's your name? And I'd hold out for the roof.
Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. This is Curtis Wilson and my co-host,
Brian Siegel. How's it going, guys?
I'm going well today, man. You know, working, having a typical beginning of the week stuff, man. How about you?
Man, not too bad. It's kind of quiet day on the floor here today, so I can't complain, man. You have a good weekend?
Oh, no. Terrible weekend. My wife was sick this weekend, dude. So it was like me, you know, playing defense with my two boys all weekend. Not enjoyable. She's feeling better now, though.
That's
thank
good.
goodness.
That's good.
Yeah. And, you know, like your wife, both our wives are teachers, Boundary Corner listeners. They're off today. So, you know,
one of those strategically placed holidays, especially for your wife coming off the illness there.
Exactly, and well deserved for all of our teachers out there. So, you know, how about you? You getting to much this weekend?
Oh man, it was a quiet weekend at the Siegel household. Though we did have my mom came in yesterday, had some lunch and just hung out for a few hours before they headed back. But yeah, it was kind of quiet, nothing to complain about. So I'll take it.
Well, nice, man. Well, while, you know, just chilling, running back and forth between my two kids, the older one playing a video game, the smaller one watching Blaze, I saw a tweet go out. Cam Phillips absolutely is blowing up in the XFL, man.
He is tearing it up. We had a hat trick of touchdowns last night from this man. First game, he was beating guys deep. In this game, he was the red zone threat. So he's showing that he can kind of do a little bit of everything.
He's something like what now? He's like 13 catches, 125 plus yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know, Hokie Cam Phillips, you know, one of those great players with us, had that season in 2017 where he really shined, got drafted by the Bills, made it there a couple years, and then kind of faded off. But I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing, just the way he's playing. He's going to get a call in April.
Yeah, he's going to catch on somewhere. He's at least going to be on the 90 days somewhere, and the 90 man somewhere. And I think, you know, we'll see what goes from there. But, you know, I think he's doing too much in the XFL not to at least get a phone call and a look for, you know, a week or so at somebody's camp.
Oh, no doubt. And you know, this is kind of what I'm hoping the XFL can be. Like guys like Cam who, you know, we follow our Hokies, but you see in college, like he can do it, but and you see him get picked up as a, you know, non-drafted free agent, and he sticks with the team for a couple of years. And it's like he's one of those guys that's going to benefit from this, because the way I kind of see the XFL, it's just a slight notch above most collegiate football, but it's not in the realm of the NFL. So for guys like Cam, like Ricky, who's on a team, it's a chance to say, hey, I can play, or give me a couple years to develop.
I've got a good analogy for what kind of I think the XFL looks like. It kind of looks like an entire season of what that fourth preseason game is for a lot of these players, where they get maybe one half to maybe 3/4 to kind of show out, where now they've got a whole season in this league to show what they're capable of. And you're going to start seeing, you know, you get more tape on a guy, and then you might say, okay, well, let's give him a little bit more reps in practice when we bring him into camp this go round or something like that. So I think those are where the benefits are going to be.
Yeah, and definitely for, you know, Cam Phillips, the Hokie alumni, he's doing the most with it. And so let's see in April if he does get signed to a roster. Something on last episode, guys, we missed. Didn't mean to, but I think we were so we mentioned his name, but we were so deep into recruiting and portal and the guys who are going to be here is Dalton Keene. Got the combine. Rambo. Got the combine invite. Good for him. Brian, you know, again, being the football guy, is there a spot for Dalton Keene in today's NFL?
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a spot for him. I'm not sure if he's going to be that guy that you're going to see getting, 80% of the snaps for a team. I don't think he's going to be that guy at the NFL level, but I definitely think he's going to be a contributor. I think he's got some potential on special teams, even though he didn't do a ton of special teams with the Hokies. Just his frame and his athletic ability and his ability to block in space, I think you're going to see a lot of special team use by him. And I think because of his kind of versatility as an offensive player, that's going to be a guy that you want to keep as maybe your third or fourth tight end on your roster that can do some stuff from the H-back role on top of maybe contributing on special teams.
Yeah, I know people are going to definitely look at what did he run 40-wise. I want to see his 20-yard cone because the one thing, if you noticed about Dalton playing, a lot of those angle routes, a lot of the pop passes. I think his 20-yard cone is going to tell something to a lot of teams because I think if he runs it well, like I think he is, because I think he has some flexibility in his frame. I think that's going to tell people to saying, look how flexible he is. He's going to be that guy like, we're running an outside zone, we can put him at that H-back, and he can kind of swing his way through the guard and the tackle and get to the second level. That's going to be the drill, I think, that is going to show for him that if he does well, you're going to see him getting drafted day 3.
Yeah, and his blocking in space was really good as well, and I think that's going to be another thing that they're going to probably watch at these camps and watch a lot of tape on him is his ability to block in space is really good. Definitely, I'd say top in that area. Definitely not elite in the inline blocking, but I think as far as his ability to block in space, either in a lead role or split out and get into the second level against a linebacker or a safety, he's definitely someone that can contribute there.
Absolutely. One other thing that Dalton kind of made a splash with in the last week or so here, I'm going to read the tweet out, Brian. He made this back on the 7th concerning some people discussing Fuente in the Twitter sphere. And this was the quote per quote. Fuente is a coach that demands 100% out of his players every day. I don't think that makes it a toxic environment at all. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to play for a coach that would settle for less. If you're not 100% in, then get 100% out of the program. Again, the negative Twitter sphere going on, and kind of Dalton answered, and, guys like Darisaw and some other folks kind of replicated and kind of gave him the, yep, that's it, guys.
So was that First Blood or First Blood Part 2?
First Blood. That's the original. That's the original because if he goes
off from there, he definitely he said his piece, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the players, coming in and trying to make put the program in the light that they feel it should be in, instead of some of the more toxic corners that we see in the Twitter sphere. And I mean, Twitter is always going to have a negative element to it, but. I feel like sometimes we get the loud voices coming from the smallest percentage, and I feel like it's sometimes nice to have the players step up and put some of that to rest.
Absolutely, and their voices are definitely going to be the voices that these recruits can listen to more than just fans and other folks in the Hokie universe. Speaking of the Hokie universe, kind of a big thing happened in the RVA today. Former defensive tackle for the Hokies, Jonathan Lewis, who had a 5-year NFL career, he was named defensive coordinator out at Varina. Varina, who had kind of been down for a few years, thanks to Highland Springs, sprung back up, made the state championship game, beat Highland Springs on their way there, lost to Maury. I like this. Lewis played with, Darryl Tapp, new defensive line coach, Darryl Tapp. So, again, people are talking about let's cultivate the 804 and let's cultivate Virginia. Now, you got somebody down here who's obviously helping build a program back up. What's your takes on that, Brian?
Well, it's going to be nice, obviously, having some Hokie blood in the 804, and especially at a program like Varina that not only has, some current high-profile wins, but also has a big time history of winning in the 804. So, I mean, it's going to be nothing but positive. I feel both for the 804 in terms of recruiting in general, and the 804 in terms of recruiting from a Hokie perspective in particular. So, I see nothing but good things, coming from this, especially from a Hokie fan perspective.
Yeah, I mean, because you got Jonathan out there. Obviously, Sam Rogers took over Hanover, announced a couple months ago. Lauren Johnson out of Highland Springs, although Highland Springs now is to a point they're producing so much talent. The Hokies have swung and missed it, quite a few of them, but a lot of the guys they've missed at are going to significantly, your top 10 program, which is where we want to get to. So, hey, guys, the talent's here. Don't be afraid to get it. Don't be afraid to use the connections.
Yeah, I mean, we got, Tab working the 757, and I think, we need to tap into the 804 a little bit more because we did miss on a couple guys that we were looking for from the greater Richmond area, and it'd be nice to start landing some of them guys again.
Absolutely, and 2021 is a big year. It is not only talent-rich down in the 757, but it's talent-rich in 804. It's talent-rich in Nova. This is a big year for Virginia, and I know probably in some future episodes, guys, we're going to be breaking down, what we're looking like 2021-wise, probably in state, and probably Brian taking a look at tape, me taking a look at positional, like how are we looking at these positions inside Hokie Nation and saying, are we going to go after this guy? Like, because, for example, if the depth chart is absolutely full, you know what? We'll make a push for him, but we're not going to go head over heels because you've got a bunch of guys that can play. It's a tough sell.
Well, you got that, and you also have with a crop of talent like the 2021 talent is looking like both in-state and within our recruiting footprint. I definitely think that we're going to go for guys that we know we can get them in, we can get them on the field. If not year one, year two, and definitely to build depth and not necessarily go after guys just to stack at one position just because it's there.
Absolutely. Something else I've noticed really these last few days, the Virginia Tech football Twitter account has really, I want to say, stepped its game up, trying to show culture, show personality. I'm sure, Brian, I'm going to go by each one of these, make sure you've seen them, because I have. Did you see the Fuente Girl Dad drop?
Yeah, that one actually, I'd say, impressed me the most. And the thing that, aside from the content, the thing that stood out to me the most was how relaxed Fuente seemed in that video. And the thing that really struck me was if you go back and listen to the video, listen to his accent. His accent is thicker in that video than in any presser I've seen, any other media that's been dropped out. He seemed like he was really just talking the way he talks, and nothing seemed planned, nothing seemed, inauthentic. So I think that's going to go a long way with Hokie Nation, in my opinion, just because it seemed relaxed and it seemed authentic.
Yeah, it did seem 100% authentic, talking about his girls there, and talking about being a girl dad, and then talking about the investment in the program. He said it, and it made me reflect back to Remember the Titans and Hayden Panettiere's character. Like, I picture him walking in and, like, his oldest daughter jumping on him about a play and, like, okay. But, yeah, loved it. The other one, Doug Nestor's mom. Hey, man, if mamas like programs, usually that helps. And
if mama's signing off, it's a good thing.
It is. And to someone of Nestor's caliber, Doug was a top 100 player. He had committed to Ohio State. He had kind of held our visit kind of in the bag for a while. And because if you kind of hear that video, he kind of knew that if I go there, I know what's going to happen. And he waited, and he went, and it wasn't long. He flipped. And but again, getting that approval from a parent, again, kind of reshaping. This is the culture. This is what we are. Loved it. One of the cool things that just dropped very recently was it looks like they are putting up the new locker room stuff.
Yes.
And in the words of Ludacris, they got area codes. and I love it because it gives the guy's name and where they're from. And I think they used Ray Shard at the 804, Devin Hunter for the 757, James Mitchell, Big Stone Gap and Pelt for the 276, and then Hendon at the 336. And that's kind of where Virginia Tech is in the middle of, those 4 area codes. We did miss a Northern Virginia there, but I'm sure we can probably see more of that. But I like something like that. It's kind of showing you're here now, but this is where you came from.
Yeah. And it's showing that, you come from different places. Once you're here, you're a Hokie for life. This is home. This is what it's all about.
Absolutely. And the last piece, and it's going to set up what we're going to be talking about here today, is about a 4 to 5 minute feature on the 4 new coaches here, between Tracy Clays, Bill Terrellnick, Ryan Smith, who's younger than us, which makes me sad, and Daryl Tapp, who's our age, which that's cool.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Especially meeting Daryl a few years ago. Again, hearing those guys talk, and I don't know. Again, it just made you feel good. And I know there's been a lot of negativity. You look for optimism, and what really struck me, Brian, and it was the way Bill Terrellnick talked. You could kind of hear he was very authentic in his voice about, the NFL something, and it's great, but it's something about the right place, the right people, and what you're trying to get to. And to me, that says something, because Bill Terrellnick could get a job at any NFL team he wants. He can.
Oh, yeah.
His dad's the Godfather. He has shown that he can do that. And then he came here. What else did you get from that video?
Several things. I'm glad you pointed out the Cheerlink piece there. He's talking about, it's not just what you're doing, but who you're doing it with, and what you're doing it, and what you're trying to accomplish. So I think that's the big piece for him. I think just in general, it was great hearing directly from these new staffers, and not just hearing stories about what they've done before, or quick write-ups. It was good to hear it directly from them. And I think stuff like that like we've been pointing out, is what the fans have kind of been clamoring for a little bit more. We don't necessarily need to know everything that's happening, but if we can just, get a little closer, don't keep us as much at arm's length, we'll definitely embrace that a lot more. So I think that's the big thing. It seems like everybody's excited to be in the building, and I think, they want to do something. They want to build something new, but they also want to honor the traditions that we have that come before them. So I think that's big. And just how they all seem to be talking about Jay Ham's energy and hard work, and how that kind of was a big attracting factor for them and why they're there. So I think that's the big things, the big takeaways that I have.
Absolutely. Well, we've opened up, went through some things. For the remainder of the show, this is kind of what we're looking at today, guys. We're going to be looking at the staff itself. Obviously, you got 4 new guys we just discussed. There were some outgoing guys. Some of those outgoing guys rubbed people the wrong way, the way who let go. There were some staff changes, clearly. John's mentioned Jay Ham here, but Adam Lichtenberg as well. We're going to discuss that along with these new guys in that interview. So before we go any further, we've got to stop here, and we've got to start with the outgoing staff. All right, so obviously the biggest outgoing coach is the legendary Bud Foster. To me, the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of college football.
No doubt.
It was big, but it was known. Luckily, Bud didn't pull anybody's strings. He came out in August and announced it. Sort of got the team and the staff a chance to, hey, this is how we're going to look in the future. We'll kind of revert back to why the 2020 doesn't look great. Well, when you don't have a named defensive coordinator, it's definitely going to hurt. I don't know what else to say on Bud. Brian, you and I were lucky enough. We were at the Pitt game. We were at his last game in Lane Stadium, pitching the shutout. The defense that day played unbelievable.
It was a fun time in the rain.
It was.
It was a fun time in the rain.
We were at the perfect spot, though. We were at that right out of the rain. We would have been 2 rows down. We would have been soaked. We were right out of the rain. But, I mean, losing Bud hurts. I mean, he'd been on the staff since we were, like, in diapers. Got the defensive coordinator title back in the mid-'90s and then ran with it for the next 20-plus years. And I say legendary, I mean, those defenses in the mid-2000s, man, if we had any semblance of an offense in 05, 06, or 07.
Yeah, if we could have just been, above average in that category, you're talking about some serious wins there, and that's on top of having a run there that was better than most of the top 10 programs that we're talking about trying to get back to. So it's something, there's some coulda wouldas in there, but at the same time you got to appreciate what he was able to do while he was there, and just glad that we got to experience that ride pretty much from start to finish.
Yeah, we did. Our age group definitely did. Let me throw this at you. Should he be the leading individual as to put coordinators into the College Football Hall of Fame? There's none in there right now, but as you remember during the announcement, and people were like, you've got to put him in there. He changed the way the game is played, the way people look at coordinators. There's obviously some other guys. I feel like I cannot think of the guy's name, but like Switzer's OC who brought the wishbone to Oklahoma, some of Bears defensive. Those guys deserve to be in there, and I'm hoping with him being a younger guy, in his early 60s, I'm really hoping overall that they can get the benefit and say, yeah, we're going to put these guys in. We're going to put a wing for the coordinators and the position coaches who, head coaches are great, but if you don't have these guys on certain teams, these guys aren't as great as they seem.
And and there's guys that innovate in the college football world that aren't necessarily guys that would make good head coaches or are interested in becoming head coaches, but that doesn't discount how they impacted the teams they were a part of, because they were bringing innovative ideas to the forefront. Now those head coaches were certainly, they in their wisdom they saw, let's embrace these new ideas, but let's give some credit to the guys that are either taking what was already there and building upon it, or kind of coming up with some of these schemes themselves. So I think that there's definitely a wing there that needs to be dedicated to these coordinators that really change the game in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. So there's our first big loss, but we knew about that ahead of time. The next one, and the one that rubbed people the wrong way, was the letting go of Charlie Wiles. Charlie, who had been with the program, since 96, so significantly long. Was advised he wasn't going to be returned. Now, the way conversations go, he was given the option to coach the bowl game. He didn't want to do that. That's his choice. Give me what your take is on Charlie. I love Charlie. I thought he always coached guys up good. Never met him. But why do you think Charlie was all in all let go?
I think the biggest thing is that, and we'll talk about this more as we get to the new defensive staff, but I think just with a younger coordinator, I think we were moving to more of a younger, more energetic staff. I just think that's the direction that we were heading. And I think because of that, it was pretty much kind of put to Charlie, hey, we're heading in this direction. Do you want to coach in the bowl game to go out with Bud, or do you want to go ahead and pack it in and call it a day? And unfortunately, he decided he wanted to take that latter option, which I don't begrudge him, but I'm sad that Hokie Nation didn't get to see him and Bud kind of go out at the same time, because I think that would have been a pretty special thing to see.
Agreed. And Charlie, clearly I think maybe one reason he did that was to get a jump on his next endeavor, and he is down at NC State now. So going to be recruiting against him.
He's got a friend down there now too.
Absolutely. Brian Mitchell, cornerbacks coach, also let go. Also down at State. Again, don't know enough about Mitchell, but he was let go.
I mean, I think
And
this is with what we ended up seeing. I think this was definitely a push to get a guy with Northern Virginia ties and in-state, born and bred Virginian in house for that position. I just think that's ultimately what led to B. Mitch being let go there. I think we kind of had a couple of ideas in mind, and I think both of them were going to be Virginia natives, and ultimately, Ryan Smith is who we ended up getting at the cornerback spot. But I feel like that's kind of the direction we were heading, and that unfortunately put B. Mitch on the outs there.
Yeah, and again, down at state, so again, going to be recruiting against him. Last guy let go, Zone Burton. Zone hasn't landed anywhere else, and that's something me and you were kind of shocked about because when he was originally let go, we're like, not shocked, was a part of the old staff, but we were like, ODU, Hampton, somebody within the first month will probably pick him up, known as a good recruiter, but he hasn't, so.
Yeah, that was a big shock to both of us. I mean, I thought definitely for sure one of the 757 programs would have picked him up, whether Division I or Division I AA. One of those schools down there was gonna scoop him up for at least a position role, if not an offensive coordinator look, and it just didn't come to fruition.
So it's very interesting how that went on. So we're going to move on. So those are the guys out. Inside the program, there were some staff changes. Obviously, the biggest was Justin Hamilton going from the safeties coach to defensive coordinator. Justin's 38 years old. Brian, you did a little more. For folks that don't know Justin, there's a lot of stuff, and Brian did a little digging on him. So, Brian, just kind of what you found out by researching.
All right, so I mean, we obviously got a Southwest Virginia native coming into the defensive coordinator role, which I think is a big thing, both for the state and for the school. There's been a big push by both the fan base and alumni to really, start looking at Virginia a little bit closer. And I think this is definitely a concerted effort to really get back on that in-state recruiting wagon and starting scoring some of those bigger fish from the 757, 804, Northern Virginia. I think that's the biggest thing that we're talking about. Just about Justin in general. I mean, any Hokie fan's going to know he was a versatile player. He was a team first guy, low ego. Played 3-4 positions. Whatever was needed of him, he was willing to step in and get it done. I think again, 38. So we're talking about bringing in a coordinator that's going to be young, energetic, but he's got that Hokie blood in him. He's got that lunch pail blood in him. So I think you're going to see a blend of the old, but with maybe some new ideas and some new ways of attacking offense that may help us, especially when it comes to things like containing quarterback runs, which have kind of been the bugaboo for our defense, despite all of the successes in our history. So I think we might see some new things from him that might try to address that. He was defensive coordinator at UVA Wise, coached outside linebackers at VMI, and then obviously from a Virginia Tech perspective as a member of the staff, he had an on-field and off-field presence. He had player personnel position when he first came on, and now coaching the safeties. So I mean, I think we're really getting a really big asset for us. There is some fear because of the unknown, because we don't know what he looks like as a defensive coordinator at the Power 5 level. But in terms of intangibles and in terms of football IQ and in terms of just being able to build relationships with players and with the community, I don't think there's anybody that we could have found better.
Yeah, I agree. And the football IQ is the big piece. A lot of people were, while we were supposed to get some $1 million coordinator, yada, yada. But then you kind of talk and say, you realize this guy went from playing running back to receiver to flipping and playing safety for 2 years, then getting drafted and playing in the NFL for 3 years before he hurt his knee. Do you know the amount of intelligence it takes to do that? To say, oh, yeah, you're going to learn this. Oh, then you're going to learn this. Oh, now we need you to completely do something different and learn this and become so good at it that you go to the highest part of your profession and not stay 1 year, but make it 3 years, and probably would have been longer if not for the injury. And when you think of folks like that, in my opinion, that's why when they named, I'm like, this is, first of all, the Hokie through and through, but how smart you have to be. Brian, you played offensive line and you switch positions occasionally to say you're not even switching, you're not even staying in your core group. You're jumping from this group to this group and now completely other side of the ball, and the intelligence it takes and the football IQ it takes. There's going to be probably things that he can see that not many players can see because I've done this before.
Yeah, and there's always a benefit from guys that were able to play both sides of the ball at a high level, just because, I mean, as an offensive lineman that coach defensive tackles, you know, I didn't just coach defensive tackles on technique and things like that. I also told them, hey, here's what the offensive lineman is going to do. Here's how you can counter that. Here's how you can negate that. So, I mean, there's bigger degree of understanding there. Is not just scheme and knowing where to be and what to do, but also, okay, well, if they throw this at you, knowing, hey, what's a good counterpunch?
Exactly. And there's going to be things he can probably see like that, again, not many people have that same view of.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. I mean, like I said, I don't know at this point what changes are going to look like. I'm really looking forward to the spring game to really see from a scheme perspective how much different his calls are going to be relative to what we saw from Bud.
Absolutely. All right. The second move was Adam Lichtenberg was moved from the associate head coach to the running back coach. Yeah.
Curtis, I bet you have some thoughts about that.
Oh, God. So I'm sitting here, and when he was hired for the role last year, it's like, okay, this is going to be your game manager. I felt we horribly managed games this year. Like, if this is your job to help Coach Fuente with the timeout situations and down and distance, oh, my God, there were times where it's like, okay, call a timeout. Why aren't we calling a timeout? Somebody get in his ear. If that was his job, which you kind of wonder, is that your responsibility as the AHC? You know, it was terrible. Also, we didn't know what his responsibility was, which is in the tight-lit part of the program, which we hate. It's like, what are you doing? His resume doesn't, excite me. No, he did play at Nebraska in the late 90s, early 2000s when they were a very good team under Solich. But then, he was a GA at Wayne State. He was a GA at TCU during those good years. But that's a GA, not a position coach, nothing like that, a GA. 2010 and 2011, he was a co-offensive coordinator at Central Connecticut University. I couldn't tell you if that's D3, D2, NAIA. So clearly not, 1AA or the highest level. And then 2012, he goes to Memphis as the director of player personnel, much like we've got Pearson Prelude now doing that for us. He did a lot of stuff in that role, which is great. Kind of get some different views and stuff. But he was not immediately brought to Virginia Tech by Coach Fuente. He went to UT Martin, where he was the pass game coordinator, wide receiver coach in 2016. Then he became the director of player personnel in 2017 at Tech. So it's just not enthusiastic because I don't know anything about him. And my hope is we blow up. I'm hoping in December I get to say, yep, I was wrong. This was the best running back group we've had since David Wilson. But I'm just so skeptical because the background, it's like, what is he here for? And,
I mean, the biggest positive that I see out of this right now is that, I mean, he is a food guy. He's been with Fuente at multiple stops at this point. And I think he's a guy that probably knows what Fuente is trying to do from an offensive scheme perspective, maybe even better than some of the coaches we've had. Whether he can relay that information and coach up the players the way he needs to is maybe the question mark we have at this point because, based on his resume, we don't have a lot of big programs to rally behind his success. And in terms of the position itself, he hasn't really coached it. So that part is a little disheartening. It's definitely not something that I'm enthusiastic about. I am glad from a recruiting perspective that we still got this guy in house because he seems to do really well on the recruiting trail. So, if you're looking for a silver lining, Going back to, I know we talked about that a lot back in the Stein Spring days. It's like, yeah, he can't call plays, but that son of a bitch can recruit.
He could.
I don't know if this is going to be a similar situation or.
At least he's not calling plays.
Yeah, exactly.
If he was calling plays, I'd be throwing things.
That's the upside. Yeah, but I'm saying in terms of actually on the field production, is he going to be someone that we see a lot from, or is he more of a filling the role while being an ace recruiter?
Well, we'll see. Time will tell with that. Now, we're going to move on now, guys, to 4 guys me and Brian were both excited about getting hired. I want to start with Ryan Smith, the youngest of these 4 new hires. I'm trying to do the math. I don't think Ryan Smith is 30 years old. He is so young.
Youth.
But as I look through his resume and kind of the stuff he did, I see him being young, and I compare him to Leichenberg's resume, and I love his. Just a few things about Ryan Smith for everybody to know. Ryan Smith is a Virginia born and bred kid, born in King George, Virginia. Went to William and Mary as a defensive back, so he played under Jimmy Laycock. Laycock has a great track record of his players becoming excellent coaches. See Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers. See Sean McDermott with the Buffalo Bills. He was there for 5 years. He graduated in 2014. Also, he went to William and Mary. You just don't get into William and Mary to play football. You literally have to be a scholar athlete to get in there. So there is clearly a very smart guy we have picked up here. After he graduated, 2014, he went down to University of Texas San Antonio as a GA. From there, 15 and 16, he was at Penn State as a GA. 16 was their Rose Bowl season, one of the best seasons they've really had in the last 2 decades. I like us going to somebody that went to Penn, getting somebody who's seen the inner workings of Penn State, especially as much if they poached from us for the last couple of years. After 2017 and 2018, under Kurt Gignetti, he was down at Elon as their secondary coach, had some very successful guys down there, a couple guys to make all CAA teams. And in 2019, he actually was a Walsh NFL fellowship with the Green Bay Packers. They have those throughout. Some of the former coaches on tech staff has been part of that, but that's, again, exposure to the NFL, exposure to more coaching. 2019, he followed Cignetti down to JMU. And clearly, if you follow Commonwealth football or the state of the Commonwealth football, JMU had one hell of a season. National runners-up in the FCS. He was coaching just the safeties down there, which might be a concern to some people, but not to me. He had 2 first-team CAA safeties. The one thing I see with if you look at his numbers, his defensive backs are aggressive. One of his safeties had 6 interceptions this year.
Nice.
Brian, let me ask you this. I got a couple more things I want to talk with him, but let me ask you this. He played corner. He coached corner at Elon, but then he flipped to safeties. We do see this a lot with secondary coaches. Like, you can coach one, then coach the other and go back. But what's the primary reason for that? Why will you see guys do that?
I think the big thing that we've been seeing is our roster is kind of trending toward that versatility, that guy that can do a lot of things well. So I think that's kind of part of the philosophy here. But also I think, as you're pointing out, it could tell us the story about where J-Ham is heading with his philosophy for the secondary, getting a guy that, is aggressive in the secondary, both from, safeties and from corners. I don't think we're going to see a change in the philosophy of trying to get these guys and to turn over the ball. So I think that's still going to be a linchpin of the Hokie defense, is forcing turnovers, getting the offense in a good position to score some points.
Yeah, agreed. And thanks for that sort of explanation. Another thing I talked about his age. I think this was a huge move for recruiting, being a Virginia guy. Not only for the state, he's primarily going to be covering Richmond area and the 757, but I think just overall, I mean, you put a guy this young on staff, I think a lot of relatability to recruits. That has nothing to help. We're about to go in the last 5 years from one of the oldest staffs in college football to now we might be the youngest staff in college football. But we're not young when it comes to years of coaching. And I think the age is a number, but the coaching experience is going to be there.
And I think where these guys have been is a key component too, because you look at some of the stops of these guys. Yeah, they don't necessarily have a ton of experience, but they've been in behind the doors of some of these really, really key programs. Some of them at about the same level as us, and some of them are programs that we're aspiring towards, and some like JMU are programs that are in the state but have had success at a different level of college football. So I think all of that experience is really, really important.
Yeah. Now, one guy that does have the experience is our new linebackers coach, Tracy Clays. Tracy's been coaching over 25 years. He's a Jerry Keel disciple. I feel like when Jerry Keel came in last year, he sort of helped calm the ship after the Duke game, put us on a good direction. Tracy's been a defensive coordinator over 20 years. Primarily, you take a look at all the stops, running a 4-3 scheme. So it kind of fits, kind of tells us that we're probably not going to be changing our base defense too much when you see that. I don't think you'd bring in a linebackers coach with a 4-3 scheme as his background for 20-plus years and say, we're going to switch to a 3-4.
We're not going to see that.
Not going to see that. But Tracy to me is really big. If you just kind of look at what he's did throughout his career, I'm going to start in really the last couple decades. 2004 with Jerry at Southern Illinois. They led the FCS in scoring defense at 13.2. A few years later in 2007, they were an FCS semifinal team with another top 10 defense. From there, he followed Jerry Keel to Northern Illinois again, where they had success. In their 2010 team, which was their last year at Northern Illinois, him as the defensive coordinator, they ranked 14th in total defense. That ain't shabby. No, you're not playing the best competition in the MAC, but not shabby. From there, they took over the Minnesota program. First year, and we'll kind of do a rundown just to kind of show you where he got that program is. Now, Minnesota, they're not getting the recruits we are. Where we're recruiting somewhere between 30 and 20 primarily, Minnesota's more of that, what I'm seeing, that when Keel was there, that mid-50s to mid-40s range. So we're getting more profile, more higher-ranked guys. But this is kind of what he did. They were there first year in 11, 93-ranked defense. Then the next year, 43rd ranked defense. Then the 24th ranked defense. 34, 43, and then 21. So less talent, better conference, better competition, not having too terrible of total defense numbers. What do you think? I mean, do you feel the same with that, or do you feel it's some hidden stuff in there, Brian?
I mean, I think those are good numbers to throw out there, and I think also the thing to consider is that I didn't look at the offensive numbers, but I don't think that in my recollection that Minnesota was out there putting up 40 points a game. So that those defensive numbers stand for something, because you're playing the Ohio States and the Penn States in that time frame that were putting up some pretty serious points, and still able to put out those numbers with that more middle tier recruiting talent. That definitely speaks to him being able to coach those guys up and get the most out of the talent that he has on the roster. So I think I don't think there's any really negative to speak of in there. The biggest thing is going to be can he translate that into what Jay Ham is trying to do.
Agreed. Now I'm going to throw one more stat out here. 2018 with Wazoo under Mike Leach, he had his best defense. They were the number 4 total ranked defense in the country. That was the year. I am pretty sure that if they had not been on a snow-laden field in Pullman, they probably could have beat Washington and went to the Rose Bowl. But unfortunately, you're on an air raid offense and you're playing in the snow. Bad things happen, and it did that day.
Yep.
Now, things did kind of end sour for him at Wazoo in 2019. The defense completely struggled. But, doing some research, it looked like there had been a significant rift with one of Mike Leach's longtime defensive back coaches. Read some articles from Pullman. Looks like this guy was very vocal about things, and kind of Tracy looked like he was just kind of sick of it and just kind of wrote his resignation, laid it on his desk, and left. And it kind of also spoke to Tracy's personality, that this guy was more outgoing, louder, where Tracy was more of a reserved guy. And for a new defensive coordinator, having a guy with significant success coming in, and you hear about like what the other guy did, it almost sounds like this is going to be a good role for Tracy. He doesn't have to be the vocal guy. He can be quiet. He can be reserved. And the way I really feel like what's going to happen is I think Tracy is going to become the sounding board for J-Ham. I think you're going to probably hear stories about after games looking at tape as they're evaluating guys. J-Ham's going to be going to him for things. Guy with this much experience, why wouldn't you? He's going to have Bud there too. So he's going to have a plethora of experience to go after. And again, hearing about Tracy's personality, I think he's that right type of significantly older guy to be on staff. He's not boisterous. He's not loud. He's the other way. And where you see J-Ham full of energy and excitement, probably going to be able to rein him in sometimes, like, pull back a little bit, man. But I really like the Tracy Claeys hire concerning this new staff.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good for us long term. It's like you said, sounding board for J-Ham, a guy that has the knowledge, has the experience, but also isn't necessarily somebody that is looking to pad their resume at this point of their career. So I think he's a guy that's going to be a big asset to J-Ham as he kind of gets more acclimated to being a defensive coordinator at this level of college football, because he's got, Bud that he can lean on and Tracy that he can lean on when he gets into a situation where, he may not quite be out of his depth a little bit as being a first-time coordinator at this level. So I think, nothing but good things there.
So, Brian, when we were breaking this down, you got the opportunity to look at the two hires that were definitely, for Hokie Nation, more exciting. TNT. Let's start. Bill Terelnick, go.
All right, so you got a Hokie fan and a Colt fan talking about a former Colts defensive assistant whose father was the godfather of defensive line and had some of the best defensive line output that the Colts have ever had. So this is right in my wheelhouse. I'm ready to talk about it, so let's do this. All right, so Bill Terelnick. So big thing for him. Pretty much been in 4-3 defenses for the majority of his career. So again, as you were talking with Tracy, I don't see us changing, not any dramatic changes to scheme. I think it's going to be more subtle as far as responsibilities, the amount of time we blitz, and then what some of the calls are going to be. I think that's going to be where you're going to see the biggest change, and not any sort of wholesale flipping of defensive philosophies. I think we're still going to go with a one gap technique on defense, because what Bill has worked in has been primarily that one gap defensive technique. You want your defensive lineman to get upfield, disrupt the running back's angles, spill them to the other defenders that can make the tackle, and you want to create pressure on the passing downs and get that quarterback releasing the ball before he's ready to. This guy's had some success in his career. Obviously, I mentioned being a defensive assistant for the Colts when his dad was a defensive line coach. From there, he ended up with the Bills, working as a defensive assistant with Mike Waffle.
Another one of the
another godfather of the
Modern
defensive line one gap technique. So Mike Waffles, the defensive line coach that was with the Giants the year that they took down the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. So this guy knows how to get defensive linemen upfield and get pressure even against teams that have really good offensive lines like the Patriots did that year. So that's some of the stops he's been on. But I think the biggest thing for him is that he did work as an assistant defensive line coach with Mike Waffles. So in the scenario that we have now with Darryl Tapp working with him on the defensive line, I think he kind of appreciates the dynamic of having two guys working in that role, and what his role can be and what he can do to help Darryl grow in that role as well. As far as what we can expect to see from the defensive line, I mean, we're going to be, I think, more aggressive at the defensive line, getting upfield, getting in those gaps and disrupting things. Hopefully that doesn't come at a detriment to the running game, just because you can sometimes create bigger gaps, and it's going to be important for linebackers to be able to make those tackles in open space when those gaps do get bigger as a result of getting upfield. But I think it's going to put a lot more pressure on quarterbacks to make faster decisions, and that's where the aggressiveness at the secondary level that you were talking about with Ryan Smith comes into play and getting those turnovers.
Let me ask this, Brian. From the tape you looked at, there's a difference between having Dwight Freeney and Mathis and Lawson, but just by looking at it, are you seeing where, okay, sometimes he depended on the players, but there were sometimes he was doing things scheme-wise where it was like there's going to be offensive lines not ready for some of those different looks and the way he, slants and stunts, like things like they're not going to be prepared for on any given Saturday?
Well, I think the biggest thing and what the Bills were doing is that they did a lot of show and bail, which really makes offensive linemen frustrated.
You don't say.
So, yeah. So you got a guy showing blitz and then he'll bail out, but the offensive lineman, the center, probably more than likely has already made some sort of check, and now, now somebody doesn't have a guy to block because the blitzer that was showing is bailed out. Now, where that comes into big time play is when a blitz is called, but not from the guy showing. So now you've got an offensive lineman that was expected to pick up a blitz that's not coming, but now he's also the odd man that has to find where that blitz is coming from and get there. And that creates a lot of the problems. That's why you often have a guy running free, because you've got a lineman that's waiting on an A-gap blitz, and now this center has to get outside and get to the outside linebacker that ended up being the guy that's blitzing.
Who do you think on the team right now? And I'll put it at the defensive line primarily. Who do you think are we going to see the biggest growth next year with just having Tierlnick as his defensive line coach?
I think you're going to see a lot more disruption from the defensive tackles. I think with the rotation that we have now, and with some of the younger guys getting another year in the weight room, and we started a couple guys right out the gate that hadn't really been in the weight room, hadn't been a part of our program, and they were contributing significant snaps. So I think I think a guy like Fuga is going to really benefit from this new scheme, because he's a guy that has some size on him already, but he's athletic and he can get upfield and disrupt those running plays and still get after the quarterback as well. So I think you might see him get some more rotation this year, on top of the fact that he's had a year in the weight room with us, but just his build and his ability to get into the backfield is going to, I think, pay dividends under what Tierlink's trying to do.
Nice. All right, we're going to move on, and obviously the last guy we're going to talk about, it's Darryl Tapp. And
he needs really no introduction to Hokie Nation, but I'm going to give him one anyway.
He shouldn't. If you've been a fan for any significant in the last 20 years and you don't know who Darryl Tapp is, I question your fanhood of Hokie Nation.
Yeah, I'm sitting in my office right now. I've got a signed Darryl Tapp pendant sitting behind me. So I'm a big Darryl Tapp believer right here. So We're talking 2-time All ACC first teamer, drafted in 2006, 12-year NFL career with 6 different teams. Definition of lunch pail mentality, hard hat mentality. Said, you're not going to outwork me. I'm going to keep this lunch pail the whole year. You're not going to outwork me.
He never gave it up. We joked with him about that, and he was like, yeah, it was mine. Like,
kept the lunch pail when he got drafted. I mean, this guy can do it all. And I mean, doing my research, I was looking. So me and him share one thing in common, at least. We're part of the 600 back squat club. He's 660. I got 600. So we're both in the 600 club. So we got to celebrate that on Big Squat Friday, right?
Absolutely, we have to.
But I mean, from a on the field perspective and from a recruiting perspective, on the field, I think what he's going to bring is he's going to challenge these kids to work harder. And I think his pedigree, it's not just words. He's shown it on the field. He's shown it in practice. He's shown it with the lunch pail. This guy is not going to get outworked. And I think that's going to inspire the kids in terms of how hard they work, both in the weight room and on the field, to never quit. So I think that's the biggest thing out the gate that he's going to provide from an on-the-field perspective is, that extra motivation to get more out of these guys than they think they can really, get out of themselves. From a recruiting standpoint, I mean,
he's raw.
It doesn't get much better. I mean, you got a guy, came from the 757, was a Hokie legend, been in the NFL, and now he's talking to guys from where he grew up and saying, hey, you can be like me. Let's go do this.
Absolutely. And Indy it is. It's any school he walks in down there, the credibility's there. Again, All ACC, All American, drafted, 12 years in the NFL. So much of that stuff, what can some coach say, like, well, I don't think you should go there. The kid would side-eye look him. Brian, this is a unique perspective for you because when you played in college, you kind of are going to be you were kind of in the same shoes as the defensive line kids who are this year. Because of, go ahead and explain who you had, because, I mean, you had an NFL guy. You had a guy who won a national championship. Tell me what the difference is when a guy like that is talking to you.
So I'll paint you a picture here. So I'm next to last game of my senior year. I tear up my ankle, 4 or 5 month recovery. At that point, I was, maybe hoping to get a school like JMU or William & Mary to say, hey, come walk on for us. So I was pretty much at that point thinking, I'm probably not going to play football anymore. I was getting a lot of calls from Division III schools, but I just wasn't quite sure that was going to be a good choice for me. But ultimately, I got a note from Keith Conlon, coach for Hampton-Sydney. He was coaching offensive line. Come to find out that Keith Conlon was a offensive lineman for Penn State and won a national championship with Joe Pa, and was drafted by the Colts and then played for the Saskatchewan Roughriders for a couple of years before getting back into the coaching ranks. So that kind of spoke to me a little. I was like, okay, well, we got a guy that's been on that journey, and he's working with this coach at Hampton-Sydney trying to build something. That's got to count for something. So, that got me in the building and just talking with him and talking with his journey and talking about what Coach Marty Favret was trying to do at Hampton-Sydney, that sold me, and I ended up playing at Hampton-Sydney. So, I was at a point where I wasn't sure if I was ever going to lace him up again, and all of a sudden, I get another good 3 seasons playing the game that I love because of a guy like him. And I think Darryl Tapp is going to have a similar type influence on some of the kids that he's going to talk to, both in the 757 and really any recruit that he's going to talk to on the road.
Very nice. So we're going to be putting out a Twitter poll, guys, and what it's going to say is which of these new coaches, Ryan Smith, Tracy Claeys, Bill Tiernick, or Darryl Tapp, will we see impact game one the most? My vote's going to be for Ryan Smith. I think having Jermaine Waller, Armani Chapman, Caleb Farley, to a lesser extent, Jamari Connor. He's going in there with proven guys. And I think, guys, he can immediately say, I trust from day one. I think that's my vote. And I will vote on there, of course. What about you, Brian?
I'm going to go with out the gate as far as on the field. I'm going to go Bill Cheerlink. I think what he's going to bring to the table of getting those guys ready, and just from a technique and scheme perspective, I think you're going to see a lot more disruption in the backfield. I think you're going to see sacks go up, and that's a direct correlation. You're going to see turnovers go up, whether we're talking strip sacks or whether we're talking interceptions, because quarterbacks are letting the ball loose before they're ready to make the right decision.
Great. Brian, anything else we need to tie up on today's episode?
Nah, not real. I think we're good. I just really appreciate everyone that's tuning in here and listening to us and helping us get this thing going, because it's been fun doing this, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Absolutely. Continue to follow us on Twitter. We are now on Apple iTunes, so subscribe. So when we drop a new episode, it's right there for you to listen to. Hit us up on the Twitter account. If you've got questions, DM us. We'll be willing to answer your questions. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. And that wraps up this episode of the Boundary Corner Podcast. This is Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
And we'll let our buddy Jason Long play us out. Catch him on Spotify, Apple Music. Thanks for listening. And as always, let's go.
Hokies.